So, hello everyone. Welcome to our Zero Trust How to Get Started conversation. Today we have our founder and CEO, Ken Fee, as well as our Vice President of Engineering, Chuck Martini. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll answer them all at the end. Ken, I'll let you introduce Chuck and let the viewers know why we thought he'd be great on, on this topic to chat with today.
Well, thanks, Jen. Chuck, welcome to the LinkedIn Live. I've known Chuck for going on 8 years, I think, at this point, close to 8 years. And Chuck joined BTA in 2014, I believe. So, and he's been my right-hand man and wingman in many of our endeavors through SDN and security engagements and the kind of work we do around zero trust and enterprise-wide security in general. And Chuck's background, he's a Naval Academy graduate and has been in the networking industry for 20 plus years.
For a while, just say time,
a good amount of time. And but Chuck's worked with me, worked with our customers, and his title of Vice President of Engineering doesn't really describe what he does, but he really leads a lot of our emerging advanced technology efforts as BTA enters new markets. Chuck's generally the person we drop in to figure it out and help pull together the offerings that we go out and deliver to our customers. So. That's the short story about Chuck. Chuck, anything else you wanted to say or add to that? Or
just thanks. That's way too much great information. But the real reason we're all here is to talk about zero trust. Is zero trust how to get started? What is it? How do I do it? Where do I go? What's the SKU? What can I buy to enable zero trust?
Yeah, and Chuck, I know you're saying that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because just as a primer for everybody in how to get started, zero trust isn't a product. It's a framework. It's a set of principles. It's a set of practices. And once you understand how you want to secure your environment and what the architecture looks like, then you start picking products to help you achieve those business objectives. And so we've worked with a lot of businesses in assessing environments, whether it's data center environments, zero trust journey, getting it launched. You want to talk a little bit about how we help people get started down this path?
Absolutely, Ken. Thanks. So, as Ken said, zero trust is an architecture. It's a plan. It's a framework. It's a methodology. It's in the news lately. There was a White House memorandum just came out a few weeks ago about implementing the executive order from last year about deploying zero trust architectures in the federal government by the end of fiscal year 2024. That referenced a number of documents with reference architectures from the DoD, from the National Security Agency, from National Institute of Standard and Technology, from CISA. Excuse me. But what all of those, and we'll provide links later on to all those documents, but what all those provide is great background information, great frameworks and documentation. What they don't tell you is how. They tell you what you need to protect and why, but they don't really go into how to protect. So what we've been doing at BTA is launching a brief zero trust architecture seminar, a webinar actually, with delivered virtually, where we spend about an hour and a half discussing what customers' needs are around security in general and how we get to a zero trust architecture. Because let's back up for a second. Zero trust is exactly what it sounds like. We don't trust nobody. Nobody trusts nothing. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the service is. You have to never trust, always verify, and audit everything you're doing, because the only companies that have not been penetrated yet are the ones that are not online. In fact, even the ones that are online have probably been penetrated too. I ride motorcycles. There's two types of motorcyclists: those wiped out and those that haven't wiped out yet. So you're going to be penetrated, and whether it's a Colonial Pipeline target resume generating event or it's just a blip and you can pass over it with some effective backups. There's going to be penetrations, and they don't always have to be malicious. It's not always foreign actors coming in to try to lock up your environment or steal your information. It could be somebody inside your company who is just expanding their reach and their visibility into things they probably shouldn't be doing. And maybe they're not malicious, and maybe they just accidentally delete everything or accidentally overwrite, got autosave turned on. The idea is you need to know who's supposed to be doing what, where in your network and data center environment, whether it's on-prem, colo, cloud, remote, VPN, non-VPN, SASE, all the buzzwords today. So the only way that works.
Yeah, that's a lot of buzzwords, Chuck. That's a lot of buzzwords.
But you got to build an architecture to encompass the buzzwords.
Yep, and that's the challenge. And a lot of people don't know where to start. There's, like you said, there's lots of frameworks. There's NIST 800. There's High Trust. There's all these agencies, U.S. and abroad, who are advocating zero trust. And and I look at zero trust as kind of like cloud, where it means something different to everybody you talk to. To my wife, the cloud is iTunes. To some people, the cloud is Amazon or Azure or AWS or Google, or it might be Salesforce. It could be any of these SaaS platforms that you have. But what I think the core of zero trust is identifying where your assets are and who has access to them, and do they need access to them? Have they authenticated? Have they approved themselves? When you engage with a customer, how do you lead that conversation with the customer? What do you focus on first?
So great question. So after setting the stage, when we're talking with our customers about why they need to go with a zero trust architecture and what it means as an architecture, not a product, we then go into actually concrete steps and systems that you can look at and actually fix, something you can do. We have a model that we look at that has technical and non-technical requirements, and everybody can do this. We're happy to guide customers through it, but it's a self-evaluation or a BTA evaluation of where you stand with the 6 technical requirements to deliver a zero trust architecture and the 5 non-technical requirements. I'll just run through them kind of briefly here. The technical requirements are user management, who's who and why are they doing what they do. Device management, which is Internet of Things time, everything, lots of things on your network and what they are. Workload protection, which are the servers, the containers, the systems and devices containing your business critical information. Data protection, which is the information itself. Network segmentation, because for all the zero trust discussion, it doesn't mean we ignore perimeter firewalls or internal segmentation, micro segmentation, and macro segmentation. And then policy consistency, which is something a lot of customers miss out on because they skip the architecture piece and jump into products to fit niches. You need a policy consistency up and down the stack.
And policy consistency is always a struggle. I don't know. With every customer I talk to, that's a struggle, because there's one group that manages the firewalls. There's a different group that manages the IPSs. There's a different group that manages the network access control lists. And then a whole different systems group that runs the apps. There's the VMware piece. There's the actual application security piece. There's so many different places to instantiate policy that to have a single policy across all those domains is a big challenge.
You're absolutely right. It is a tremendous challenge, which leads to the requirement for an architecture and then the non-technical requirements that a lot of companies gloss over.
Do you what's your take? I see a lot of customers that try to apply different security policies in different places, and then they create a lot of troubleshooting problems for themselves. They actually inhibit the business because the security strategy, the zero trust strategy, doesn't really get deployed enterprise wide, and they're not coordinated. And that to me, that goes to maturity and visibility. And I know one of the things you do when you go through these workshops, you you talk about those areas. You mentioned the 6 technical and the 5 non-technical, and how do you measure that? Is that we're super good and we're terrible? What's the compendium there?
It's a continuum of we use a high level maturity model of just evaluating qualitatively. Essentially, are you rudimentary in your user management, for example? Are you proactive or reactive? Are you managed and optimized? Like your policy consistency would be optimized if you consistent policy deployed throughout your entire environment in network devices and systems that's hierarchical and structured.
Okay. And where do you think most organizations land on that compendium? Are they a 1? Are they a 3? Or are they a 5? And 5 being the most optimized and 3 being kind of middle of the road. Where do you think they land?
Like any good technical question, the answer is it depends, but it varies from organization to organization. And even one of the customers we talked to had 3 different environments in their network, and some of them were at a 3 and some of them were at a 1 in some of the areas. Generally,
so it's a matter of focus. It's a matter of, what are you focusing on? Do you have the resources? Do you see customers outsourcing some of these functions so that they can accomplish the goal without having to take on the headcount to make it happen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there are pieces. The key is to bring it together, though, with an architecture view and make sure that just like outsourcing your cloud, you don't move to the cloud just because you want to do cool stuff. You do it because it solves a business problem in an architectural manner.
Yeah. And, one thing I like to talk about when I'm talking with customers about these kinds of things is when you deploy zero trust technologies to support an overall zero trust initiative, if the outcome of the technology deployment isn't essentially a constant state of readiness for audit, one, you're deploying this to be more secure and to defend your environment. But also, we've got customers in highly regulated environments, whether it's medical or financial, or just so many organizations that we deal with today have personally identifiable information of their customers, of their employees, of their infrastructures, and deploying zero trust and being able to not have audits be a big deal, I think, is a really good thing. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had rescheduled with customers because there was an audit, a pop-up audit requirement. And hey, we've got to stop what we're doing for 2 weeks or 4 weeks and go address this audit. And my philosophy, when I talk about our simple service delivery methodology, it's, there's lots of documentation. And when we do zero trust engagements with customers on workload protection, one of the things that we offer as an ongoing service is essentially a customized audit report for our customers. And that's, I think there's a ton of value there. And, it's one of those, I like to sleep at night. I don't like to be up at night chasing hackers or putting together an audit report that's due tomorrow morning. So I'd rather be in that proactive to optimized level of the maturity model, the 3 to 5 range. But we see a lot of customers in that 1 to 2 range. And, sometimes you can't do it all overnight. It's kind of like, the analogy I always use is how do you eat an elephant? And you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And how do you do zero trust? You have to do it one step at a time. You start with an architecture, you build a roadmap, and you go execute against it. And our goal with at BTA is to help customers accelerate that journey. And that's why we do it. It's why we do what we do. It's why we do it the way we do it. We want to train people to do these things. We want to empower them. And where they need some help, we provide advisory and some managed services. So that's the BTA end of this story is, we want to help you get on a path. And if you want to be self-sufficient, we want to help you get to self-sufficiency. But if you want us to take on the management of some of those things for you, we do that. We've got offerings for it. So I've just kind of monologued for a little bit. Anything else you wanted to share, Chuck?
Actually, for the architecture is that zero trust cannot be deployed effectively without an architecture. If you don't have an architecture, you're going to fail. You're going to have science projects that live in silos, and they're going to fail. Having said that, there are two. We've all been there. There are two quick hits, though. There are two technologies that are ubiquitous across all the frameworks, all the models, all the capabilities, and customers can get into them fairly quickly. One is multi-factor authentication. Absolutely must be deployed. And where and who and how should fold into your architecture, but that's usually a fairly quick hit. The other one is something you were talking about a minute ago, Ken, and that's workload protection. We can get customers to workload protection in 6 weeks.
Yep.
Identify it, and that's usually a huge hurdle that customers have. But you mentioned our simple process, and that's how we can help customers get steps along the way, moving from reactive to proactive or to optimized.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and I'm glad you called those two things out. But yeah, obviously, workload protection is something we've made a tremendous investment in, and we're seeing a ton of value. I think we have over 15,000 agents deployed amongst a bunch of customers. I think we're right around 100 production enforcements in that space.
Yep.
In I think the last year we've done that. So that's really, we've been tracking the number of enforcements for the last year. We really try to focus on metrics because metrics matter, and being able to measure things and say, hey, this is what we accomplished is huge. This has been really, really good for me, Chuck. And I think we try to target keeping these around 15 to 20 minutes. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we turn it back over to Jen to see if there are any questions?
Just that Jen's going to put some links in the chat window when we're done to the reference documents I mentioned. They make great reading if you're tired, but some of them are extremely compelling, and they're not just US centric. There's also a link there for the UK.
Okay. Hey, Chuck, there is one question in the StreamYard that I see. It says, what are the non-technical requirements?
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. So the non-technical requirements are, all of us are network geeks, and we usually miss out on the sort of thing. But non-technical requirements are an architecture first, because your architecture isn't necessarily technical. Strategy to implement that architecture, and then tactics to implement that strategy. It's a hierarchical pyramid that works its way down. On top of that, however, are responsibilities and budget. If you don't have someone in charge and that person doesn't have budget, your architecture and zero trust plan is going to fail. And finally, something you alluded to, Ken, when you talked about our audits, compliance. You need to be aware and cognizant of your compliance requirements and make sure your zero trust architecture is congruent with all the compliance requirements in your industry.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think a lot of technical people kind of skip over are the business side of technology. There's something that pays for everything that we do, install, operate, and maintain. But being aligned with the business is as important as what we're doing, because if we're not supporting business objectives and business needs and meeting financial targets, these things don't get funded. So cool. That was a great question, Gabby, and I appreciate it. Jen, were there any other questions?
That was the only question. As I typically say, we generally have a pretty a thorough conversation about this stuff, and I think it's a compliment to you and Chuck. That you covered a lot of territory in a consumable amount of time. So yeah. And I'm going to post those links. And just as a note to our viewers today, we're offering a personalized zero trust strategy workshop. So your business can do a deeper dive with us at BTA on what makes the most sense for you to begin your journey. The link to register is going to be in the comments, and we look forward to providing guidance and value to you and your business. Also, a big thank you to Chuck for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. Thanks to all of you for watching today, and until next time.
Okay. Cheers. Have a great one, guys.
Bye.